Big Shaq disguises himself as homeless. What happens next will shock you. The sun dipped behind the city's skyline, painting the streets in shades of orange and gold. Tourists and locals filled the bustling downtown park, weaving between street performers and food vendors. But no one noticed the tall figure hunched on a bench near the fountain. His oversized coat was frayed. His battered sneakers told a story of hard times. And he held a paper cup, rattling a few coins inside. To everyone passing by, he looked like just another homeless man. What they didn't know was that beneath the ragged hoodie and carefully applied makeup stood NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal, also known as Big Shaq. The towering athlete, famous worldwide for his basketball dominance, had decided to conduct a daring social experiment. He wanted to see how authorities treated people they perceived as powerless. Shaq had heard countless stories of profiling and prejudice. Now he wanted to experience it firsthand. Without his usual entourage or any protection, he took a public bus to the park, blending in thanks to his meticulous disguise. Despite his height, passersby dismissed him as just another homeless person. For an hour, Shaq sat quietly, observing the world around him. Joggers ran past in bright athletic gear, teenagers zipped around on skateboards, and families strolled with their children. Some people ignored him, while a few dropped coins into his cup. A mother gave him a sympathetic glance, but quickly moved on. Shaq nodded in gratitude at the small acts of kindness, but this wasn't about charity. He was waiting for the police who often patrolled the area. As dusk settled in, a police cruiser pulled up. Two officers stepped out, Officer Davis, tall and confident, and Officer Lopez, whose watchful eyes took in every detail. They approached Shaq slowly, their expressions unreadable. "You can't sleep here," Davis said bluntly. "The park closes in an hour." Shaq looked up slightly and replied in a low voice, "I'm not sleeping. Just resting." Lopez's tone was softer. "Sir, do you have any ID? A place to go tonight?" Shaq shook his head. "No place yet. Just sitting for a while." Davis's mouth tightened. "We've had complaints about loitering. We can't have people feeling uncomfortable." Lopez glanced at her partner, visibly uneasy, but didn't correct him. Instead, she asked Shaq, "What's your name?" "Henry," Shaq replied, using a random alias. He pulled out a battered ID card made for the experiment. Lopez examined it, but didn't find anything to challenge its legitimacy. Davis, however, was less convinced. "This looks pretty worn," he said, scanning it skeptically. "You from around here?" "Used to be," Shaq shrugged. "Times got hard." Lopez handed the ID back, but Davis's suspicion grew. "We've had issues with vagrants. People say they feel threatened. Maybe you should move along." Shaq kept his gaze on the ground. "Ain't bothering nobody," he murmured. "Yeah. Well," Davis shot back, "people pay good money to enjoy this park without worry." "That's an issue." Double quotes. An elderly bystander overheard and spoke up. "He's not scaring me, officer. He's just sitting here." Davis dismissed her with a wave. "Ma'am, let us do our job." Lopez tried a gentler approach. "We can refer you to a shelter or a meal program. Maybe that helps?" Shaq nodded. "I'd appreciate that." But Davis wasn't satisfied. "Let's run your name through the system," he said, returning to the cruiser. Minutes later, the search revealed no warrants or criminal history. Still, Davis pressed on, clearly irritated. "Look," he said, stepping closer, "I'm not comfortable leaving you here." "Move along now." Shaq's heart pounded. Should he push back or end the test? He decided to stand his ground. "Just resting a bit more," he said calmly. Davis's hand hovered near his baton. "Are you refusing an officer's instruction?" Lopez stepped in. "He's not breaking any laws," she said firmly. "We can't force him to leave," Davis retorted. "If he won't go, we might have to remove him." Shaq stood up, towering over both officers. Davis took a step back, startled by his size. "All right," Shaq said quietly. "I'm leaving." Lopez nodded with relief. "Be safe," she murmured. As Shaq walked away, he felt the burn of Davis's glare on his back. Later that night, Shaq revealed his experiment on social media. Hidden body cam footage showed how differently the officers treated him. Davis was aggressive, while Lopez showed empathy. Shaq's post read, "Testing real attitudes. Some good, some not. Time for change." The response was overwhelming. Fans praised Shaq for shedding light on the issue, while others criticized Davis's behavior. Local news picked up the story, sparking debates about policing and the treatment of the homeless. Shaq clarified that he didn't want Davis fired, but hoped for better training. "Fear can't justify bullying those who seem powerless," he said. In the following weeks, the department introduced new training programs focusing on respectful engagement. Shaq donated 2 homeless outreach programs and sent a letter praising Lopez's professionalism. The story even led to policy changes, with the city allocating more resources to support the homeless. Months later, Shaq returned to the park, this time in his usual stylish tracksuit. Families and fans greeted him warmly, and among them was Officer Lopez. She approached hesitantly. "I'm sorry about what happened," she said. "I tried to do the right thing." Shaq smiled. "You showed compassion when it mattered. That's what counts." Even Davis, after undergoing training, started treating the homeless with more respect. While he never publicly admitted it, the incident changed his perspective. Sometimes a tough lesson can lead to personal growth. If you found this story inspiring, don't forget to subscribe to Unfolded Chapters and hit the bell icon for more thought-provoking stories. See you in the next chapter.